Hi guys, and welcome to Marley and I's Facebook Live. Today we are going to be talking about portion sizes in the low FODMAP diet. And this is really important because a lot of times we see people make mistakes or misinterpret the Monash app in regards to portions. So Marley is here today to tell us all about how you can make portion sizes work for you in the most liberalized approach on the low FODMAP diet. Thank you so much for coming on today, Marley. This is Marley's first Facebook Live. So, give her a shout out, a wave, cheer her on.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about why portion size matters on the low FODMAP diet?
Yeah, definitely. So I kind of want to go three different directions with this. First of all, we'll talk about why portion sizes matter. Then we'll talk about common portion mistakes that people make with FODMAP foods, and then we'll talk about how we can fix those mistakes.
Perfect.
So first of all, why portion size even matters in the first place with low FODMAP foods. So what a lot of people don't realize is that we don't talk about FODMAPs in terms of having FODMAPs and not having FODMAPs. It's not that simple, unfortunately. So we actually have FODMAPs in a lot of the foods that we eat, but they can be different at different portion sizes. So it's not as simple as just saying this food has high FODMAPs, this food has low FODMAPs. We actually have to first know the quantity of that food to know if it's going to fit within our low FODMAP group.
And I think the perfect example is almonds, because a lot of people are like, oh, I can't eat almonds, they have FODMAPs in them. But you can eat almonds. But that's one of those things where we just have to watch the portion size.
Exactly. So the point of the low FODMAP diet is really not to be FODMAP free. It's actually just simply reduce the amount that we consume. Mm-hmm. That's why we don't call it the FODMAP free diet.
Yes, low FODMAP diet.
Exactly. Truthfully, we would probably be left with almost nothing to eat if we were avoiding all FODMAP.
Very few foods are FODMAP free. So examples would be, our meats, simply because they don't contain carbohydrates, some of our vegetables, and, a few of our grain products.
Yeah.
So very limiting.
Yeah, we, this, we'd love to talk about FODMAPs in terms of a bucket theory. So our gut is like a bucket. I'm sure a lot of your followers have heard you say this before.
Yes.
But it's different. Our buckets can be different sizes based on who we are. So those with IBS and other digestive issues have a really small bucket, and other people might have a really large bucket where they can add all kinds of FODMAP foods before having any noticeable symptoms.
I was actually just telling Marley I took the oral typhoid vaccine yesterday and my stomach was awful. And so my FODMAP bucket today is really small. I'm eating as low FODMAP as possible until my guts feel better. But on days that I'm doing well, even though I have IBS, my FODMAP bucket is a little bit bigger. So I can put a little bit more in there before it overflows and I get symptoms.
Exactly. So that's pretty much it when it comes to why portion size matters.
So how do we fix the common portion mistakes? So the example with almonds, how would people kind of be able to figure out how much FODMAPs they can have in a sitting?
Great question. So when it comes to FODMAP foods, one question that I get a lot, and you probably get it a lot, is can I overdo it with low FODMAP foods as well? So some of those kind of green foods on that list. And the truth is, everyone is very different, so tolerance can change. But the way that FODMAPs are designed is that we are able to actually include more than one per meal generally, as long as it's on that low list. And at Ignite, we actually encourage people to try some moderate FODMAP foods too, which would be under the yellow umbrella. So not quite high, not super, super low, but generally people can have one moderate FODMAP food per meal even.
That's what we start with on the elimination phase. And then as we go, you might actually be able to have a few. So you might have like a gluten-free toast with breakfast and then put a tablespoon of almond butter on there. And that will be considered I'm pretty sure that's moderate on the list. 15 to 20 almonds. So a tablespoon. And so that's your moderate food combined with your low FODMAP green food.
Yes.
But we wouldn't want to add in any red foods during the elimination phase.
Exactly.
And even, sorry, jumping in. Even green foods, you always want to read the text on the Monash app because they may become high FODMAP in very large portions.
Exactly.
Examples being things like, off the top of my head, broccoli florets. Not very many people eat 2 3/4 cup, I think is what the measurement is, of broccoli florets in a sitting. But if you were to eat that much broccoli, it would go from that green category into that red category. So just being aware that even green foods, you want to read the text because they may be an issue.
Yeah, exactly. But the way that that Monash FODMAP app, which we'll talk a little bit more about, is designed is that they base their serving sizes on typical portions. So what we tend to eat in a meal. So like corn is the first one that comes to my mind. And half a cob of corn is considered low FODMAP, but generally we would eat a full cob in a sitting. So that can be that red zone where it becomes high FODMAP.
For sure. I know in the summer I'm a whole cup of corn kind of girl, but yes, during the elimination phase, you want to do your half a cup.
Yeah, but it's nice because you can still include half a cob of corn and not feel super restricted.
And from a gut microbiota perspective, I mean, we still include a few of those FODMAPs in amounts we know you will tolerate so that we can feed the good bacteria in your gut.
Yeah.
So again, FODMAP-free diet, no go, but we want to have a little bit through using those yellow foods.
Exactly. I find in general, the thing I find myself saying to clients the most is that you actually don't need to be quite as restrictive as you may think. So people look at that FODMAP list and they assume, oh, well, I can only have one of those per day, one of those moderate FODMAP foods per day. And that's not really the case. It's generally in a sitting. So as long as you give yourself time between those foods, then you're usually in the clear.
Yeah. And we definitely say it's not black or white. So not all or nothing. If you make a mistake, that's okay. Just figure out how it made you feel, jot it down, and let your dietitian know.
Yeah.
So I know we've kind of alluded to this, Marley, but what tips do you give patients to do portion control the right way? What do you want people to take away from this?
Great question. Well, we talked a lot about the Monash FODMAP app, and there's some other great apps out there too when it comes to FODMAPs. So the Monash one in particular, they use that traffic light system. So they have green, yellow, and red zones. And one, like you said, one food can actually fall into all three categories in different quantities. So it's great to check how much of a certain thing you can have. So the corn was the example I was going to use. Having half a cob versus a full cob is going to be very different. And they actually rank, I think, 3/4 of a cob of corn as moderate. So there's a lot of kind of
wiggle room.
Yeah, exactly. The next tip is if you feel like you've reached kind of your maximum amount of low FODMAP foods in a meal, but you're still hungry, which happens a lot with some of our clients, you can actually fill up on other foods too. And earlier you had mentioned that some foods don't have any FODMAPs at all. So things like meat, fish, eggs, those animal source products, they don't have any FODMAPs. So if you're still hungry, you can definitely fill up on those as well. And they're actually full of protein, which keeps us really full.
Yeah.
Another one is healthy fats. So having lots of oils and oil-based dressings and things like that.
Lots of people miss that and balancing out their meal, which is why they get hungry so quickly.
Exactly. And I think there's a fear of fat still these days, but we don't need to be too scared of it. And it does fill us up as well, kind of similar to how protein fills us up. And then there's some other starchy foods that are actually really low in FODMAPs too. So white potatoes is an example, and rice is pretty low FODMAP in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, exactly. So those are all really good options.
Yeah.
I know one of my go-to low FODMAP meals is gluten-free gnocchi, which is potato-based, tomatoes, spinach, olive oil, a little bit of truffle oil, and then some Parmesan cheese. So there's lots of ways you can fill up. It's so easy. Oh my gosh. I do it in a skillet. 5 minutes.
Nice.
Yes.
I saw that on your plate yesterday. You had some rice as well. So that's a good low FODMAP
Yes.
food.
Somebody asked me if my food yesterday was food models because it was so perfectly balanced.
Yeah.
It was real food.
The next tip I can give people is timing. So like I mentioned earlier, you don't want to have a bunch of FODMAP foods too close together, or low FODMAP foods too close together if your upper tolerance is a little bit lower. I mean, that's something we'd have to figure out over time, but you wouldn't want to have a bunch of those foods in one huge meal, because that can still be overdoing it.
Yeah, which is why we tend to not, I know intermittent fasting is so popular right now in January, but it's really not the best for the low FODMAP diet, simply because you have to load all of this nutrition into one meal. So meals and snacks.
Yeah, and we see a lot, I'm sure you see it too, that clients are almost like fearful sometimes about eating in general. So they'll skip breakfast, lunch maybe, just to get through the workday, and then they end up being starving when they get home and eat a really big meal. And even if that meal is full of those green foods, those low FODMAP foods, it could still be too much for their system.
So make sure you space those meals out.
Totally.
So thank you so much for hopping on Facebook Live with me today, Marley. If you guys have any questions or are looking for a dietitian to help you with a low FODMAP diet, our Ignite team is here. We do 75% of our patients are IBS patients, and the rest are other GI disorders and food relationship. So you can hop over to ignitenutrition.ca to find out more information. We have lots of free tips, tools, recipes, menu plans. As well, you can access dietitian services there. So again, www.ignitenutrition.ca. And if you guys have any questions, leave them below and we will hop back on to answer them, or answer them on our next Facebook Live. Bye.